Does your campaign world have oceans and therefore ships? Would you like to build some docks for those ships? Stay tuned. That's what we're doing today. Welcome to another episode of Starships and Steel, helping your game look its best. First things first, Happy New Year to everyone out there. I want to thank everyone who subscribed to the channel, and I hope I can continue to provide you guys with some cool content. One of the parts of Conan's world that is pretty fun is him as a pirate. So for pirates, you need ships. For ships, you need docks. So as we were talking about earlier in my introduction, today we're going to be building some docks. These docks are loosely inspired by some of the docks in Tarantia from Age of Conan. Got the basic idea from there. And if you don't play that game, it's free to play, and there is a lot of cool ideas for terrain, for not just Conan's world, but for any fantasy world you want to play in. Lots of different scenarios or sets and set pieces that you can get inspiration from. Big fire, lots of epic stuff, tall temples, runes, inscriptions on stones, just lots of good ideas in there. I'm sure other MMOs have similar concepts. I'm sure there's some pretty cool ideas in World of Warcraft, but I don't play that one. I do play Age of Conan a little bit, because Conan, hello. So anyways, if you guys would like to see how we build the docks, then follow me up to my craft area and we'll get started with that. But I wouldn't let you guys go. Today we're drinking Okanagan Springs. It's a nice porter. Okanagan Springs is a brewery. It's made in Canada. Canada's awesome. Very, very tasty. Quite like it. This is one I tried pretty recently, and I've bought it again. The alcohol content on it, I just noticed, is 8.5%. That's pretty good for a beer. So, cheers, boys and girls. Let's see what we can get done. Okay, so let's build some docks. We got our beer, we got our bamboo skewers, we've got some card from like a 12 pack of Coke. We've got some chipboard from the back of a legal pad. We got some styrofoam. This is like 1/2-inch blue styrofoam. And for tools, we got a razor knife, carpet knife, some shears, some kitchen shears for cutting the chipboard, a glue gun, shocking I know, a uniball pen for foam work, a ruler for cutting foam straight. And so let's get started. So the first thing we want to do is make sure we have a really sharp knife, and just take that knife and cut out our basic shape we want to use for the rock pylons for this dock. If you had a wire cutter, this could be a lot faster and a lot cleaner, but I don't. So that's layer 1. Layer 2 is a little bit bigger than layer 1. Do the same thing again, cut that out, and we'll just glue those two together once we got our two pieces cut out. Just trim them to shape. There we go. Give those a test fit. They test pretty good. Alright, get our hot glue gun. It's hot glue on there. There's other kinds of glue. I find this glue to be pretty fast and pretty sturdy. Take a little test piece here to show you just how good of a bond you get. If your glue is too hot though, it will melt the foam, so make sure you're not at super heat. Alright, let's pull this apart now that it's, well, not quite yet. Once we're cured, we will try and pull that apart. There's a small piece of rock pylon I built for this project as well. There we go. Let's see how well that comes apart. So you'll note that the foam tears but not where it's been glued. So that's pretty good. It's a good bond. So once it's all cured, take that knife, and we'll just cut through both layers to even them out a little bit. You're still going to have a line in there, kind of like sedimentary rock maybe looking, but it'll look pretty cool. Just keep taking your knife, go around it. Again, if you had a hot wire cutter, you can put this on an angle and just cut these off way quicker and way simpler. Basically, your goal is to make this one uniform piece, 1 inch thick piece of foam that looks kind of like rocks. So next we're going to take the knife and cut some texture into there. So some crevices, some cracks, some striations. Just go around the whole blade, whole knife. Go around the whole block of styrofoam and just cut some grooves in there. And these will get picked up when we do the painting. Go around the whole thing, add some texture. And then we got our Uniball pen. So I've got a couple just basic slices in there. I'm just going to widen those out a little bit with a pen. Same kind of idea you do like with cracks and dungeon tiles and that kind of thing. Just keep going around so you're happy with how it looks. Eventually you're just trying to build a big block of stone that sits in the water for the docks to sit on. Let's see, we'll figure in there to see test scale. Looks alright. Another little piece of rock for the water, built exactly the same as the bigger piece, only this one's a little bit smaller. Once you got that, move on to the next stage, building the actual wooden docks. So I built these out of bamboo skewers instead of out of popsicle sticks, just to give it a little bit more of a round, kind of interesting look to it. So the first thing I did was put some hot glue on a thin stick and then just glued the bamboo skewers to that to give it a base to work with. I put too much glue down initially and it dried, cured, whatever you want to call it, cooled off. So I just scraped that off and then added some more sticks on there. I think I used 11 or 12 bamboo skewers to build a wooden ramp kind of idea. Then I just took another piece of thin stick and marked out how wide I needed it. Put some glue on there, picked up the sticks, and then glued them down so we had a base to work with. We will trim those off later so that they'll be even with the dock structure. And then we're just going to take some white glue and put that over top of the dock structure, just to add a little bit more strength. Full strength white glue on there. There we go. Just get a paintbrush, put some water on it. This is my all-purpose big paintbrush, which is not an expensive paintbrush. And just put it on there. There you go. Fill those in. I let it dry a little bit and then flipped it over. Did the same thing on the back, just to fill in those gaps as much as I could. There's glue in the back. Just fill that in. So I did 2 of these because we have 2 rock outcroppings. So this will give us the ability to make our dock twice as big. Okay, we're going to take some of that card that we had earlier and we use that to add some banding across the top of it. You could do this any way you wanted to. I just cut out 6 strips of card and glued 3 to each one. Just add a little bit more texture. If you were really gung-ho, you could use some jute twine or something along those lines to simulate or tie together the logs to make them look like they're more rustic. I view this as maybe some wooden planks that were put across all these logs to hold them together. Check those out. And then we'll just cut 6 pieces off each piece. So we'll have six pieces of card that are approximately the same size. There we go. So 1, 2, 3, and then 3 on the other one equals 6, and you'll have a basic set of planked logs that you could use for the dock. And we're going to use it for the dock in this project, but there's no reason you couldn't use this exact same process to build raised platforms or scaffolding or anything like that. They end up making a fairly interesting, a little bit different piece of structure. So there we go. The next thing we'll do is glue these down with some hot glue. Just pull those off. Get the hot glue gun out. And yeah, the easiest way to do this is to take those banding structures, put them where you want them, draw a line with your pen. That just gives you a line to follow with the glue, bead of glue. You just put the glue on there, just like that. Perfect. And stick that wood on there, which isn't really wood, we're just calling it wood. On the back. One on the front. There we go. So I mean, you could use popsicle sticks for this or thin sticks if you wanted to. I just thought I wanted it to be a little bit flatter. We'll take our shears and we'll cut off those ends and make it flush. Trim. We'll have a nice even set of logs. When you do this with these, they send little pieces of bamboo everywhere, so just be aware of that. Then go in with the cutters and trim off the thin sticks. And then you can use your razor knife to just trim those down so they are nice and flush with the edge, they don't stick out. You can use sandpaper for this too. However, I had the knife and I didn't have sandpaper, so I used the knife. Bead of glue. Banding, bead of glue, banding. It's exciting, isn't it? Remember, part of the fun of this is building it, and the other part of the fun of this is seeing your players get enjoyment out of the game. And trim them off to the same length. There we go. You can see how those thin sticks stick out a little bit too much, so just get your knife and trim them off if you want to. Okay, so now we're going to have, we have these 2 rock structures that are a little bit big. So we're going to build a set of stairs that might extend up onto a seawall to prevent flooding when the tide goes up. So, first step is to cut out our stair blocks. My initial plan was to make these big enough for miniatures to stand on, and then I decided that wasn't a very good idea. It's only 2 steps, 4 steps, whatever. So in the end I decided to trim them off, and I think I made the steps like those blocks are like 1 inch wide, and I think I, in the end, cut them each step to be 1/4 of an inch, if I remember correctly. We'll see in a second. Yeah, so this was my first plan. I was like, nah, it's not a good idea. Ruler out there. The first thing I decided I needed to do was to square this off. So first is an example of how not to do it. Get your razor knife and go really fast. Just cut the whole thing all at once,
and you just tear the styrofoam and it looks horrible. So you see how bad that looks? Not very good. So this is not because it's not a sharp knife. It is a sharp knife still. And we'll do it again with the exact same knife blade. We'll use multiple passes this time. And you will see how much cleaner that cut is without changing the blade. So 1 pass, 2 passes, 3 passes, 4 passes. There we go. So a tiny bit slower. That's the original cut. That's the new cut. Same blade. Alright, so now we're ready to go. So we'll put our stair block on there, move it back. We know the size we want. Cut that out. Again, multiple passes. Multiple passes. We got our stair base now. So this is where I decided that these would look cooler if we took that bottom step, cut it in half essentially, and then cut halfway down so they're 1/4 inch by 1/4 inch steps. Let's draw a line to line those two up so we can do it nice and easy. Drink some beer. Then take our knife and make a couple shallow cuts. We don't want to go too deep because you only want this to be halfway through this piece of 1/2 inch foam. And from the front, don't cut yourself. Don't cut yourself. No, I didn't cut myself, I'm just kidding. But don't cut yourself. Sharp knives, be careful. Just keep going and eventually it will pop right out and you'll have your first set of stairs. There we go. We'll repeat the same process on the top set so we get 4 steps up to the top of the seawall. There we go. Then a small set of stairs. Now, of course, miniatures can't stand on this, but it's a pretty short distance, so I'm pretty sure they can just walk up it in a turn, round, episode, event, whatever your role-playing game uses. It's not very far. Build some edges on this now. Let's take the 2 steps and put them on our styrofoam so we know how much we need to build those walls. Use your pen to draw a line and align it the height you want, which would be probably not flush with them, probably just a little bit higher. And then just use your ruler to draw that straight, and then use that in your cutting board to draw a line across there, and then cut 2 of them out, because we need 1 for each side of the stairs. So this project is pretty simple. It's a little bit of stuff to do. The stairs probably take as long as everything else. None of it's overly complicated. Alright, that seems to fit together pretty good. I'll give them a little bit of a test here, make sure things fit. I don't think there'll be a problem. We've tested this all the way up. Let me get an idea of what we're building here again before we paint it. Okay, so before we glue it together, we're going to add some texture. This is the simple concept where you take your knife, draw some lines, cut some lines in, I guess. Take your uniball pen and just go over those until you get the brickwork you want. And no, I don't get a kickback for uniball. That's just the pen I like the best for this. So let's glue it all together. Alright. Made a tiny mistake there with the steps, but we'll just fix it. I lined my step stones exactly the same. Went through that pretty fast, but trust me, make sure your steps, your stone mortar joints aren't lined up exactly, because that's not how they work. Finish off your texturing, and away you go. So I hadn't built bases for these yet, so I'm just going to use some chipboard, and I'm going to cut it pretty much exactly flush with the bottom of these, because I don't need any to stick out. I want these to be rock piles, pinnacles, whatever you want to call them, coming out of the water. And these are these kitchen shears I was using because the stuff's a little bit tough, which is why we're using it for the base, just to give the bottom of these a little bit of protection. And the last one for the biggest one. There we go. I'm going to use some hot glue. And we'll glue these down, just like that. Zook. And glue that on there. And the big one, give us some more glue because we're going to run out. And that goes on there like that. And we are pretty good. And these are the paints I'm going to use. So I'm going to use a dark brown to light brown for the wood. And then a dark gray to a light gray for the wood, for the stone. And then maybe some red and green. I don't think I used the green in the end. Just add a little bit more interest to the stone. Red for the bit more minerals in the rock. And then maybe some green for moss and stuff. And of course black, because we're going to prime it. You could use a spray bomb if you wanted to. I didn't. I just used a brush and black. Just went over it until it was nice and black. But that's the colors I basically used. They're all dollar store pieces. So this is just a water bottle that I use to mix my paint, make a little bit of water onto it so it's clean. Just go over it. So that's again just a basic water pot that I use to thin out my paints. I just got it at the art store, the little paint bottle for like $1.50. And I just put some water in there, and then I can water down my paints with clean water. Otherwise, I'm trying to add water from my paint jar, which is always dirty. Always changes the color of the paint a little bit, darkens it. And just make sure you get everything covered. I think we've gone to full strength paint here just to finish it off a little bit. A couple places I didn't get any paint. And I think that tiny little black piece on there, I think I do get it. Pretty sure I missed a place on there somewhere. We'll see in a bit. There we are. Alright, so let's take a little bit of lighter brown color. And just go over it with a heavy dry brush. It's not really dry, but pretty close to dry. We just want to get the tops of the logs and leave the insides, the crevices, to be pretty dark still. Got a beer going on this one. Pretty sure that's an Okanagan Springs Porter. Pretty tasty. So this beer glass we brought back from the Czech Republic last year, or this year. It's not November, it's not New Year yet. Had a good vacation there with some good friends. Ate a lot of good food. Drank a lot of good beer. It was a good trip. Highly recommend it. Alright, lighter brown. Get that dry brush on that. We want to get a lighter layer of brown on those high areas, but we don't want to get rid of all of the original brown. We want a couple of different tones in there, make it a little more interesting looking. See, that's the place I missed. More beer. You use the smaller brush for the final colors. Let's get that finished up in there. This doesn't drive me insane for the rest of my life. Let's add some highlights on there. A little bit more interesting colors. Just keep going, make it kind of cool looking. Put that down wherever you think would look cool. And we have our 2 wooden platforms. Okay, so the thing I didn't show when I did these was, of course, I textured the top of those stone blocks with some styrofoam to get a bit of a bumpy thing on it. And then we're just going to paint this with a sponge. So first we're using that dark slate color. And we're just going to give yourself some pretty good coverage. Make sure you don't get the brown on there again, which I just did. It's not the end of the world. Some extra color in there isn't going to make it that bad. Stone's rarely just one color. So we want pretty good coverage over this. 90% gray, a little 10% black showing through maybe. Rough guess. And by 90 and 10 I mean a lot and a little. Do the same on the small one. Sponge in there. Once that's done, we'll get some more beer. And then we'll get next color down gray. So I think a cloud gray. That maybe we're looking at 70 and 30 coming through. So a little bit less of that, a little bit more of the original gray coming through. More beer. Last color gray, which I think is smoke. This one would be pretty light. Just pick up some edges and highlights. It's a pretty simple paint job, but they should look pretty stony. Then I just took the smaller brush and went in and kind of highlighted some of the edges with that light cloud. It's a good beer. All right, so now we're just going to take that darker gray color and we're just going to paint up the stone steps. We're going to make these less dappled, like they're more refined. So we're just going to hit this, color all that in, and then hit it with a one layer of lighter gray medium dry brush on top of that. If you're smart, you let this dry first. I was impatient, I did not. In the open areas, it was not a big deal. In on the actual steps, it was a little bit damp in there still. All right, here we go with that dry brush. Just pull up those stones. A bit of red on there, just get a little bit of red color on those stones, a little bit more interesting than just gray. Then we're pretty much done. Let's see how it looks. So here's our seaside town with our docks built onto them. So they're looking pretty cool. We got some crates on there. We're already picked up by the ship. So that's what this project looks like. Some pretty rickety, rustic looking docks moving out into the water on some stone pylons. So if you like this, give me a like. If you want to see more, please subscribe to support the channel. Please leave a comment too if you have any ideas you want to pass on to me about this project. Thanks for watching, and I will catch you guys the next time. And Happy New Year.